once upon a time, in a city by the river, in a tiny little kingdom, in the middle of the night, when all was quiet, a little girl was born. And suddenly, the night was not so quiet anymore. That was the first indication that this voice would play a significant role in the life of this loud and generally hungry little girl. You know how some experiences in life turn out to be defining moments? Well, I had one of those when I was around 9 years old. My parents and I were driving through Antwerp, where I grew up, and my dad got lost. And we ended up driving through the red light district. Now, I saw women in all colors and sizes standing in windows lined with red and blue lights in their underwear. And I remember looking at it with big eyes and open mouth, and I found it weird and absolutely fascinating. And so that night, I learned that my great-grandfather had been a policeman in that very area in the beginning of the 20th century. And he had used his authority and his considerable physical strength to protect women who came to him for help dealing with abusive pimps. And although this man had died long before I was born, I felt this instant connection to him. And I decided in that moment that I was going to do something too. Now, if you look at me, you might have figured out that I would have to use a different way. So how does a Chinese Studies and International Relations graduate with some HR experience end up as a singer-songwriter who hangs out in the red light district every week? Well, a while ago, my employment contract ended, and to be honest, I felt completely lost. I knew I didn't want to go back to where I came from, but I was afraid to express, let alone pursue, the dreams that I'd carried and buried inside of my heart. But you could say that I had a Craig Lewis moment. Wasn't his speech inspiring, by the way? And so I decided that I didn't want to spend the rest of my life wondering what if either, and I took a leap of faith. And as soon as I did that, things just started happening. I was connected with the producer of my debut EP that I released last year, and I was connected to the leader of an organization called Belgium that works with people working in window prostitution. And so soon after that, I joined their street work team in the city by the river where I was born. Now, what is it that I do in Antwerp? Every Tuesday, my street partner and I, we go into the red light district, which is a 3-street pedestrian zone with window next to window next to window, still lined with those red and blue lights, where men and women, mostly women from different countries, offer their services. There are about 280 windows, operated 24/7 by a day shift and a night shift. We walk by those windows, and we try to build connections with the people working inside the windows. And so you'll often find me standing inside the windows, chatting to my girls. Now, in a place where trust is almost non-existent, that is a very precious commodity. And so these experiences and the stories that have been shared with me have made me even more passionate about women's rights and even more horrified by the reality of human trafficking and forced prostitution. It's important to differentiate between a few concepts. So first of all, there is human trafficking. According to the UN's latest data, human trafficking, call it slavery, is a fast-growing business worldwide. But because data collection is so very challenging, we have no precise number and so no full idea about the scope of the problem. However, we do know that slavery today is bigger business than it has ever been before in history. Its victims are male and female with a growing number of children worldwide. People are exploited in a myriad of different ways, and one of those ways is prostitution. Some of the women I've met in Antwerp are in fact victims of human trafficking, and at times this has been extremely hard to prove. Then there is forced prostitution. In my opinion, that should be defined very broadly. Sometimes people see no other way to make enough money fast enough. And situations can be so dysfunctional that it takes a more structural approach as a society. Now, I am well aware that the prostitute doesn't exist, and I would really shy away from stereotyping the prostitute. But there are some common denominators in the stories that I've heard in the windows so far. Extreme poverty, a lack of employment opportunities, traumatic backgrounds like different forms of abuse, addiction, the loss of family members, especially at a young age, and no one to fall back on, and manipulative relationships with other men and women. And then often when people start working in prostitution and the money starts coming in, it can also be very addictive. Now, it's usually a combination of those different factors. Now, most women are just trying to build a better future for themselves, so I know that some people actually choose to work in prostitution for a while. They're trying to build a better future for themselves, for their families, and offer for their children if they have them. But I have yet to meet anyone who has told me that this is their long-term dream career. Because prostitution takes a toll. It takes a psychological and a physical toll. Just imagine, you're sitting in this window, often 7 days a week, up to 12 hours a day, in your underwear, and you're waiting. You're waiting, and so you have a lot of time to think, and you have no guaranteed income. You're waiting for clients to come so you can pay your window rent, which is a high cost, your apartment rent, you can afford life, and then hopefully set enough money aside to send back home to your family and save up for the future. And that is the simplified version of the reality in the windows. Some of the things that clients ask when they come to the windows, and I've been there at times when that's happened, involve serious health risks. And while most women will say no, not all of them refuse. Now, I'm in a unique position that I get to know this microcosmos with its men and women, the clients, the regulars, the pimps, the drug dealers, the traveling salesmen, the shopping boys, etc. And so we've laughed and cried in the windows, and I've been privileged to hear a lot of personal stories. And so I know that quitting is very hard. Unless you have a clear plan in place, you're dealing with a sudden loss of income, a loss of housing, because who wants to share an apartment with someone who can't afford the rent? A loss of your social network, because your world tends to become very small. And so women who step out, they do need a lot of support and encouragement. We also offer help. We have social workers who do plenty of things in the office, and we also help out in practical ways. So we try to offer support for those women. The number of women stuck in seemingly hopeless situations is staggering. So when I first joined this work, I pondered the futility of those efforts. And I asked myself, how do we even start? I mean, there's so many of them. And then a thought came to me, one at a time. You see, I'm just pursuing a dream that every person I meet would have the freedom to exert that right to choose the life that they want for themselves without feeling the need to work in prostitution. And so you go after the one, because I firmly believe that one person can impact the lives of many. So when we're chatting in the windows and I'm hanging out with my girls, I tell them that I know that it is really hard to leave behind what you know, to jump in the deep end and hope that you're going to be able to swim. I know that that is a scary thing, and I know that it is often a lot harder for them. But I have seen women rise to the occasion. I have seen them face the demons of the past, and I have seen that they rebuild their lives one day at a time with all the ups and downs that come with it. And so that has been such an inspiration to me as well. In our society, we've built this safe bubble And we've carefully constructed that, and we get very uncomfortable when that bubble is challenged. But again, from personal experience, I can say that outside of that bubble is where I have learned and grown the most. A long time ago, I had this wild dream that one day I would be brave enough to stand before leaders and challenge them to love the ones that often go unloved, and that I would be able to give a voice to those that society often looks upon with very mixed feelings, and that I would provide opportunities for people seeking to change their lives around. I can tell you that never in a million years had I imagined I would be standing here before you today to do exactly that. So I ask you, would you please think about how you can look at people with the least amount of judgment possible? Are we feeding love, or are we feeding fear and apathy? Are we providing opportunities for people to change their lives around, even if that means that we'll be kicked out of our comfort zones, that our assumptions will be challenged, and that we will, at times, be hurt and disappointed? How are we raising our kids? Are we teaching them that men and women have equal rights and to speak up when those rights are violated? Are we putting current global and local issues like human trafficking and forced prostitution on the school curriculum? I believe that as we as individuals start caring, it will ultimately be reflected in our culture, in our media, and in the leaders that we have the vote to elect. It is my hope that we and the generation that we are raising right now would be passionate about giving people opportunities to really live the lives that they would choose for themselves. So, will you use your voice? Now, I'm also a singer-songwriter. I don't just sing about what I experience in the windows. I write happy songs and stuff like that too. But I would like to sing a song for you that I wrote, which is called Monday Song, because I wrote it on a Monday. And yeah, I know, it was an inspired title. But it is my response to a very sad news morning. I received some sad news about one of the women that I know, and I heard some really sad things on the news, and I just cried, wrote a song, and then found hope. So I'd like to share that with you. Let me introduce to you my friend, Mr. Gibson. She stands there with her bowl, with its last grain of rice, while her mother's digging up some of yesterday's supplies from a dumpster. She stands there with her pimp, selling sex to provide, while her kids are out at school. People choose to close their eyes to the trauma of the youngsters. And I feel this wave of blackness swell, shadowing hope from my heart's inner well. But I'll reconnect with the source of light, shifting darkness, and I'll channel light. I'll reconnect with the source of light, shifting darkness, and I'll channel light. She's cultivating weeds, nothing else ever grows, so she shovels the dry land even though she's too old. But she's fighting and surviving, and I feel this wave of blackness swell, shadowing hope from my heart's inner well. But I'll reconnect with the source of light, shifting darkness, and I'll channel light. I'll reconnect with the source of light, shifting darkness, and I'll channel light. I'll channel light. Rise and shine. Rise and shine. Rise and shine. Rise and shine. I'll reconnect with the source of light, shifting darkness. Now I'll channel light. I'll reconnect with the source of light, shifting darkness. And now I'll channel light. I'll channel light. I wanted to conclude saying thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to you, and I would like to give you an invitation, like, why don't you think about what your voice would sound like? Thank you.